Although your report does not identify any legal violations, it raises concerns with the way taxpayer money was spent. For example, your report raises concerns with how the IRS chose Anaheim as the location for this conference, and it questions the use of non-government event planners to identify this location, picking up where the chairman left off. Specifically, your report states, and I quote, "The use of the planners in this process increased the possibility that the site selection did not result in the lowest cost to the government." Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Now, let me go to you, Mr. Fink. I must tell you that I'm pleased that you apologized. That's a major step, because I think it's important that the American people know that somebody feels bad about this and remorseful. But Mr. Fink, let me turn to this. The committee obtained documents from the hotels that hosted the conference in Anaheim, and one of those documents is an email between two Marriott hotel employees. I want to read it to you and get your response. Now, I want you to listen to this. It says, and I quote, "Orlando and Las Vegas are out!" Exclamation marks. "This is fantastic news, as Orlando was $1 million less in travel spend. The funding is there, and they have been instructed to move forward." End of quote. Mr. Fink, this email sounds like the hotel employees were mocking you and maybe even taking advantage of the IRS. It says you could have saved $1 million by holding this conference in Orlando. I have no idea if these hotel employees knew what they were talking about or just theorizing. So let me ask you, since you were the man in charge, how did you choose Anaheim for this conference? Did you look at other locations like Orlando? And were any of those other locations less expensive?
Representative Cummings, first off, I'm not familiar with the email, but I will tell you what I have been told was done at that time was that we used a travel estimator. There is a travel estimator that is used by the Internal Revenue Service when planning training and meetings. That travel estimator, we looked at over 20 different locations. And in using the travel estimator, we came up with 3 locations that could handle this size of conference, that would be able to be logistically not incurring additional costs as far as traveling people long distances when they arrive. So we looked at those types of things that were in addition to using the travel estimator to look at, I believe it was over 20 different locations, so that we had to look at and make sure that we were not going to incur additional local expenses, but along with that, it was just a matter of logistics when we came up with the final 3 cities, sir.
Mm-hmm. And so you said several times during this hearing that if this were to take place today, it would be different. How would it be different?
It would be different today because, Representative Cummings, the conference would not occur. Under the guidelines and the restrictions that exist today, a conference of this nature would not occur.
I note that back in 2010, there were 152 conferences, and then in 2012, I think there was like 24, and an 87% decrease, and thanks to this committee and transportation, of course, and President Obama. Do you think that was a good thing?
Absolutely.
And why do you say that?
The reason that I feel it was a good thing to see the decrease, it showed that we had increased our scrutiny, that we were paying more attention to how we were using the taxpayers' money, and that we were taking a harder look as to what was the necessary training that individuals were receiving.
Now, let me ask you this. Did the event planners give you a cost-benefit comparison of the various locations before the IRS chose which to use?
Representative Cummings, I had no interaction with the event planners. I do not know if they gave us a cost estimate. I know that we chose the cities as far as looking at which cities would be appropriate, and we also made the final decision around where to hold the conference.
Mr. George, I'd like to ask you about the room upgrades. As I understand your report, 132 hotel rooms were upgraded to suites. but the government still paid its normal per diem rate of $135 for these rooms. That's right. I think you testified to that earlier. So your report is not saying that the IRS paid $1,500 a night for these rooms, which I guess they might normally go for, or Mr. Coots. Your report is saying, if I understand it correctly, that instead of accepting these room upgrades, the IRS should have negotiated lower prices for all the rooms or for the whole conference. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
And Mr. Fink, my final question, why didn't you do that?
First off, I was not aware that we had the ability to do that, and as of today, I'm not sure that we could have done that, Representative Cummings. I do believe, though, that we did pay the $135 per diem rate, and in paying that $135 per diem rate, there were additional items that were included by the hotels to use during the conference.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.